but you just know that, they also died in very, very similar and tragic ways. And these are only the people that Dennis could remember, because, like I said, when he was found, he couldn't seem to remember. He didn't seem to give a fuck about a lot of these people.
Yeah.
So one of them was a young Scotsman called Billy Sutherland. There's apparently a dude described as a long-haired hippie type. There's one who he says was an emaciated young man. Does that just mean really thin?
I actually don't have a clue.
I think that just means really thin, sort of hungry looking, which would make sense if he was offering him food. There was another Irishman, and there was this one. There was one that was a heavily tattooed skinhead who had the words "cut here" tattooed around his neck, which the guy sounds a bit kooky, quirky in himself. Dennis didn't like him. Apparently, he found him annoying, which, all things aside, no disrespect, if you have a cut here tattoo around your neck, you probably are a little bit annoying.
No,
you don't deserve to be killed.
Think about when it was like the 80s, it was like the rebellion sort of era. And
it was, and skinheads, you had the sort of rebellion against the mod culture and things.
So I think that's where that was coming from.
No, definitely, but he's probably just not someone I would have got on with. Probably. Yeah. Probably wouldn't be the kind of person I would probably hang out with. But again, does not deserve to be murdered.
No, of course.
Deserves to, if he was an asshole, let him live his life as an asshole. If he's a nice person, let him live his life as a nice person. It's not your choice to take that away from anybody. Dennis would soon be moving home. So the place where he lives at the moment, he would be moving out of that place. But not before, on September 17th, 1981, he meets a young man called Malcolm Barlow. This one's really, really sad. Just for the tragedy of it, kind of. So Malcolm was an epileptic. And he actually had a seizure just a couple doors away from Dennis's house. So he was on the curb, and Dennis took him in, called an ambulance for him, and Malcolm survived his seizure.
Okay.
The next day, Malcolm was released from hospital after surviving his seizure, and thought he would go to the home of the nice man who saved him
and thanked him
and give him thanks. He was pleasantly surprised to know that Dennis then invited him in for a meal. As you might imagine, Malcolm was then murdered that night. How fucking tragic is that? Which is a weird thing, though.
It just shows the logic, though. It's just like a fucked up logic to save somebody to just kill them.
Yeah, it's very much
a fucked up logic.
It's very much wrong place, wrong time sort of thing. It's like why did he not kill him? So it's not the killing. I don't get it. I don't get it.
But the
that
thing
really
is, though,
threw me there. But
if he was he on his own? Does it say if he was on his own when he had that seizure?
he was on his own. He was an epileptic, and he was just found alone a couple of doors away from Dennis's house. So essentially, in this little small segment, Dennis was the hero for a small amount of time.
So what I want to understand is, why did he? And no disrespect to this person at all, but why did he just let him die there when he was having his epileptic fit? And then just take his body?
Exactly.
And not save him, and then go let him live, and then come back into just to kill him?
The only thing that I can possibly think of, and again, this is me pretending to be a psychologist, exactly the same way I'm pretending to be a podcaster right now.
Both attempting.
The only thing that I can possibly think of is that he hasn't got the control at that stage.
Right, okay.
And for someone who is very methodical and likes things ever just so, it didn't fit with, again, his MO. It didn't fit with how he liked to do it. So he obviously wanted to do it in a very specific way, which just letting him die out from an epileptic fit didn't quite fit that. But again, fucking tragic, because if the kid was just being nice and going to his house and to give some thanks. But
such a shame.
It really is. Like, if he was like a less thoughtful person, he probably would have survived.
Oh no.
Which is the lesson we should all learn from this, really. Be less thoughtful to others. No?
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, you're probably right. That was the last murder that he would commit in the home, the 195 Thingy Avenue. I've repeated that address so many times I've already forgot it.
Melrose
Avenue. After a long-standing argument with the landlord, Dennis had to move house. The landlord apparently thought of Dennis as troublesome. Understatement of the century. A little bit troublesome. Obviously, he had no idea what was going on, but apparently they used to argue for a bit.
Right, okay. I was just going to ask that just then.
Yeah, one of the things that, if you manage to see any of these, I'll show you these afterwards, some of these home movies that Dennis makes, he has a temper. And again, when we're thinking about that guy who Malcolm, the athletic dude, you can sort of see the control in these home movies, because he's very much the director of these movies.
Right, okay.
And when things don't work out, he snaps in these videos. But yeah, they're an interesting watch if you want to get a bit more of an insight onto what this guy's like. Dennis was offered a new apartment at Cranley Gardens, and because he was so adamant that he wouldn't move at the start, the landlord actually gave him an extra £1,000 on top of it just to get him out. Which back then, that £1,000 is a lot of freaking money. I mean, £1,000 is a lot of money now. I wish I had £1,000. But back then it was a lot. So he must have been really a dick. 6 months after moving to 23 Cranley Gardens, Dennis strangled a petty criminal named John Howlett, a victim who gave Dennis the fight of his life and amazed him by coming back to life over and over.
Oh my God.
Graham Allen is another victim who was killed whilst eating an omelette that Dennis had cooked for him. And what Dennis sort of recalled of this particular guy's death was a bit odd. He says, I noticed he was sitting there and suddenly he appeared to be asleep or unconscious with a large piece of omelette hanging out of his mouth. Weird. He tried to say that he thought Graham choked on the omelette. He actually said, if the omelette killed him, I don't know.
But surely he would have strangulation marks, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. So he was, for some random reason, he's been really open with talking about his murders, but then with this one, he sort of tries to act as if the omelette killed the guy, and it wasn't until someone mentions to him, omelettes don't leave red marks around people's necks.
I don't see the logic in that, to be fair. Why did he even mention that?
I don't get it, unless he really didn't care about these people and he really didn't keep track of who he was killing.
Okay.
So maybe he was like, I don't know if I killed that one. I've killed so many, I don't fucking know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Dennis, after someone said about, omelets not leaving marks around your neck, Dennis was like, oh, I guess I must have killed him then. If it wasn't the omelette, it must have been me. Are you sure it wasn't the omelette? Definitely sure it wasn't an omelette, Dennis.
What was that accent?
I think that was just a generic creepy accent. Are you sure it wasn't the omelette? That's how I picture him. That's how I picture this guy speaking. Unfortunately, it's not.
I reckon he's got like a really croaky voice like that, and then it just talks.
Do you want me to do
really
my
weird
impersonation of him?
Go on then.
It's going to sound nothing like him. Hi! Like that. That's when he's angry. Okay? And this is when he This is when he's creepy.
I thought it was the omelette that might have killed him. But it wasn't the omelette. Oh.
What the hell is that?
Listen to him. That is exactly what he sounds like. Not. It's a little bit of that. So the omelette debacle was over, and he now had a couple bodies. But the issue with Dennis's new home was that it's an attic flat.
Okay.
So there's a few people underneath him at this stage, and obviously he can no longer. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how is he doing this
with people underneath
strangling?
him?
Strangling people. Obviously, they're gonna be like kicking up like a fuss and making a lot of noise.
Well,
how is he not gonna?
How are people not hearing all the ruckus that's going on upstairs? To that, darling, I don't bloody know. I'm just going to say that this is probably down to British people being British people. Think of how many times our neighbours are banging the hell around in their...
Yeah, you sort of just grow accustomed to it.
You grow accustomed to it. We don't ever bang on their doors and check what they're doing. They could be the next Dennis Nilsen, our next door neighbours.
Do not say that.
They could be. But yeah, you just don't knock around someone's house and ask, because there's always that, there's that, the British mentality of you don't want to be rude to people, you don't want to upset people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, that's none of my business. That's none of my business. That's...
you are right, yeah.
So there's that thing, if you knock around someone's house and say, "Why are you killing people?" then you're the weird neighbour who accuses everyone of killing people, which is not a good thing. So yeah, the issue with the people living underneath him was that he couldn't obviously put his bodies under the floorboards.
Yeah.
So what he did instead was he started to dissect the bodies and flush them down the toilet.
What?
Yeah. So these things are just so degrading to people's bodies. This is just the worst. But obviously, with him being a chef, and there's a picture here I can put up. And again, guys, check out the face.
It's not gruesome, is it?
No. That is a picture of him in the army chopping up some meat. It's just a nice little...
So he know how to cut meat and things like that?
Yeah.
I'm not meaning like just bodies are just pieces of meat. But...
No. Well, essentially, at that stage, to him, that's all they were.
Yeah,
really.
I know.
Yeah. So he would just hack and slash away. So he'd chop them up. And he'd flush them down the toilet. So there were 4 other attempts at murder that were apparently unsuccessful. And one of them, who was probably the most outspoken of everybody, who's ever come forward, is a guy called Carl Stotter. Was a drag artist at the time. I tried to find out what his drag name was, but I really couldn't find it. And I know it's not relevant, but I was just really curious to know. So yeah, he was a drag artist. He was 21 at the time. Again, usual story. They drank together. They went to bed. But Carl says that Dennis told... Oh, this is weird. Because Carl says that Dennis told him to be careful of the zip on the sleeping bag, as he might get caught up in it. And I imagine him saying this in this fashion. Be careful of the zip on the sleeping bag. You might get caught...
For fuck's sake.
You might get caught up in it. Like that. Because the level of weird Scooby-Doo style foreshadowing that Dennis is laying on here is ridiculous. Carl woke up in the night being strangled by the zip on the sleeping bag. So
how can you get strangled up by a zip?
I thought that, but apparently he was. I don't know what older sleeping bags were like. I don't know the different types of sleeping bags. I know that some sleeping bags have like on the zip they have like the cord that comes quite far down, so it's not just like a little metal zip.
There's also double zips as well.
Yeah, so you could probably do that. But Either way, he was getting fucking strangled to shit by the zip on the sleeping bag. At first, because of obviously Dennis saying be careful before he went to sleep, he thought that he was helping him out of the sleeping bag.